under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin the meeting with a moment of silence. This meeting is being recorded and televised by the local cable company. I'd like a motion to approve bill and payroll warrants.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept correspondence in the read file.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public forum, now is the time for anyone to speak who wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda. Approval of meeting minutes, open session, October 17th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
New business. First on the list is to vote to ratify the police memorandum of understanding. Frank?
Yes, this is the final round of the 4 contracts that are going to be presented to town meeting for approval at a date to be established tonight. The contract cost for the police contract for the first year items is $66,000, and it is a 3-year contract.
Does anyone have any questions? Like a motion to ratify?
I will make a motion to ratify.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Next, public hearing for the purpose of determining a residential factor to be applied in calculating the percentages of the tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property for fiscal year 2018.
She's up.
Good evening once again.
Good evening, Kath.
This would probably go much quicker if I could have you extricate the what-if scenario table, and we'll make it a little more easy to follow along.
Okey-doke.
So we're here to consider whether or not Whitman is going to stick with the uniform tax rate, or we have the option to split the tax rate. When we are considering which way to go with that, we need to look at 2 options which are also available to be adopted by the town. The first option is the residential exemption. This allows a community to grant an exemption to owner-occupied residential properties of up to 20%. This exemption shifts a portion of the tax burden within the residential class away from the lower-valued single homes to higher-value single homes, multifamily properties, apartment buildings, and non-resident property owners. This exemption is typically adopted in communities that have a high percentage of rental properties, which is not the case here in Whitman. The second option that we need to consider is the small commercial exemption. This one allows a community to exempt up to 10% of the value of Class 3 commercial parcels. This option shifts the tax burden from parcels occupied by small businesses to those occupied by other commercial and industrial taxpayers. Eligible small businesses may have an average of no more than 10 employees. It should be made clear, however, that it's not the business entity that receives the exemption, but rather the real estate owner. The Board of Assessors has previous tonight voted not to adopt either of these 2 exemption options. So that being said, if you look at the worksheet, the top left breaks out the valuation that has already been approved by the Department of Revenue. And it also gives us the percentage of the total valuation of each class. So if we look at that top left-hand box, the residential portion of the total valuation is 87.35%. The commercial, industrial, and personal put together is 12.65%. So we know that we're not going to use either the residential exemption or the small commercial exemption as options. So what we know now is what we estimate the levy to be, and for the large part, that was already determined at the annual town meeting. So when we plug the valuation in, using the levy, we come up with an estimated tax rate of $16.01 per 1,000 of valuation. The table just shows the shift of tax rate away from residential towards the commercial and industrial as you move down the table. So this just gives you the tax rate shift. In the packet that I gave you, I also gave you examples in tax dollars. So I showed you what a uniform tax rate would look like in tax dollars for the average single family in the average commercial or industrial parcel. I gave an example of a 10% shift, a 25% shift, a 40%, and a 50% shift. So it's, for the reasons that I'm just listing above, the percentage of the residential valuation, and the reasons that the board did not adopt either one of those exemptions, that the board has also voted to recommend a uniform tax rate. And I just want to be clear on the numbers that I'm giving you, they are estimates. They're good estimates, but once we submit everything into the Department of Revenue for the approval of the tax rate, we can have things shift by rounding or anything that, the town needs to tweak in response to something that the DOR advises. So I always like to say that this classification hearing does allow the selectmen to reallocate the tax burden from the residential class to the commercial, industrial, and personal property classes up to 150%. The Board of Assessors feels that this would place an unfair burden on these classes. Combined, they comprise just 12.65% of the total valuation for fiscal 2018. Additionally, the Board of Assessors is obligated to inform the Board of Assessors of the excess levy capacity prior to submitting the tax rate into the Massachusetts Department of Revenue for approval. The excess levy capacity is calculated to be approximately $334,322. And this is the difference between the maximum allowable levy of $24,759,611 and the actual levy estimated to be $24,425,288. The last page in the packet with just some items of interest. The average single-family home for 2018 is valued at $292,745. So at the estimated tax rate of $16.01, that's going to produce a yearly real estate tax bill of $4,686.85. That's up $292.34 from last year. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Doesn't look like it.
Okay, so we need a vote.
So what we're looking for is a vote to ratify factor of 1.
Correct.
That way, residential and business will be at the same rate.
Yes, and we're estimating that rate to be $16.01 per 1,000.
The amount of businesses, large businesses we have in Whitman, it's all small businesses. I will make that motion that we go with a factor of 1.
Second.
Okay, is there a second? Is there any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Thanks so much.
Thank you, it was really clear. Next item on the agenda is public hearing with respect to the application of DJ's Country Store, LLC, doing business as DJ's Country Store, to alter the premises located at 535-2 Plymouth Street in connection with the wine and malt packaged goods store liquor license as follows: to remove the existing walk-in beer cooler in order to relinquish 746 square feet of space to the adjacent business. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Who is here from the store? Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
How you doing? Good.
So we have a motion. You want to explain what we're voting on?
Well, when you walk in the front door, do you have this little diagram in front of you? When you walk in the front door, I'm giving up that 414 square feet to, which used to be Debbie's Kitchen, which is now Cast Iron Cafe, and he's enlarging the business. Okay? So my beer walk-in cooler is straight down to the right. He's gonna take that out, and I'm gonna move that beer from there over to the left-hand side of the store. And that's pretty much all about it.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, you're supposed to be getting, how many more additional seats?
I don't know, sir. I don't own the restaurant anymore. That's him.
This is
I just own the
Debbie's-
store.
Right,
It's not Debbie's Kitchen any longer.
I know that.
I'm sorry.
Breaks my heart, sorry.
Yeah, I know. I miss the customers desperately, believe me.
No one. All those in favor of the change?
Sure.
Thank you.
That's gonna be amazing.
Vote to authorize the destruction of quarry reports that are more than 3 years old. Frank?
We are awash in paper. I don't see any value. By law, we cannot keep them more than 7 years. There isn't a lower limit, there's an upper limit. I don't see any need or any purpose to retaining printed quarries that were pulled more than 3 years ago. So I'd like the board's permission to set a 3-year expiration on
Sir,
retaining these records.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Second.
Isn't it?
How did you come up with 3? 3 years.
3 years is about,
Is it half of 7? Almost half of 7?
we have 12 years worth of quarries.
Okay.
It was 2 cabinets.
But when you do a
And we
quarry, how
can't
long
keep
is it
them
good for?
electronically.
Like, if you quarry somebody.
It's good for today. It could
Yeah,
change tomorrow.
So, I mean,
So
a year.
I guess the only reason that some people retain quarries is to demonstrate, one, that they did do it, and two, that if something really horrible comes up, it wasn't evident to us at the time the quarry was pulled.
I think the schools keep them for a year, if you do want to be a
Yeah, if you're a
volunteer.
volunteer or something like that, they make
Yeah, because they make you redo them every year.
yeah.
But they redo everyone every year. We don't normally redo the quarries unless somebody's new to the municipality. And I don't have a problem with keeping them a year plus current if anyone thinks that might be more productive.
Frank, what about keeping Cory checks on people who are still employed to the town? In other
It
words,
doesn't matter, you're only allowed to keep them. The whole intent of the quarry is to give you a picture in time.
Right.
When you're making a decision, and there are certain positions for which we can pull quarries, and there are some we cannot.
But what happens if, say, God forbid, an employee has a problem, and the question was, did you ever pull a quarry on him? And we say, yes, we did. Well, where is it? Well, it's been destroyed. And they still work for the town.
There's no affirmative obligation to pull a quarry except for,
No, but Dan's question's not a bad question.
I think
I
there
mean,
may
it's
be a
only going to
record.
be, it's only going to be an issue
I'm
with,
sure that the
Quarry has a record of it.
yeah, the Criminal History Systems
Oh,
Board
us calling.
has electronic records of all quarries pulled. So they can tell you when a quarry was pulled and who pulled it. What
There
we
are-
don't have then is the data that came back with that report.
okay. Anyone else?
I'll go with his advice.
All those in favor?
That's fine. Got it.
Right away.
Act on the resignation of Michael White from the position of Auxiliary Special Police Officer effective October 4th, 2017.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Act on the resignation of Finley S. Walsh from the position of Permanent Reserve Intermittent Officer effective October 6th, 2017.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Act on the recommendation of Police Chief Scott Benton to appoint Nathan C. Wilder to the position of Auxiliary Special Police Officer through June 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Act on the request of the WHRHS Chapter of Best Buddies to hold the Best Buddies 5K road race and a 1-mile fun run walk on April 7th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Act on the request of the Whitman VFW Post Number 697 to hold its annual Buddy Poppy Drive at Stop and Shop, the Post Office, and Regal Liquors on the dates outlined in a letter dated October 24th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
They have to have permission at Stop and Shop, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor?
I would
Aye.
argue that's the only place they actually need
Right.
permission from.
I think it's more for informational purposes up here.
Call for a special town meeting on December 11th, 2017. Frank?
Yes, as you know, we have now ratified 4 collective bargaining agreements under Mass General Law, Chapter 150E. Once agreements have been settled, we are required to call for a town meeting for funding purposes within 30 days. We're certainly within that limit for the last agreement reached. I am requesting that the town, through the Board of Selectmen, schedule a town meeting for December 11th. Earlier, the assessor mentioned that we have an excess levy of $334,000. If we had been able to get our assessment data earlier, then I would have sought to raise and appropriate money at the town meeting. However, if I do that now, we won't have a tax rate January 1st. So I intend to recommend that the increases, which cumulatively add up to $175,000, be voted out of free cash. I don't want people to think we're using free cash to fund salaries. The money is there. It's simply a practical approach to getting our business done and getting things in order. There are a number of issues that we're going to be looking at for the special town meeting. Well, should probably do the next step when we get into that. So I'm asking the board to vote to call for a special town meeting on December
11th, 2017. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Anybody have any questions of Frank?
The articles that you've given us, Frank, this is, you expect more to come in?
They're not articles yet.
Oh, okay. Well, the preliminary articles.
Perhaps, I don't know, I hope not.
We haven't voted to open the warrant yet.
Okay, I apologize.
We're going to do that pretty soon, though.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on whether or not we have a meeting on December 11th? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda.
Now, I am asking
Vote to open the special town meeting warrant and to close same on Tuesday, November 14th, 2017.
So moved.
Is there a second?
It's a very short window. I don't want people to think we're open for business in terms of spending money. There are a couple of big things coming up. One is $1.5 million for water pipes. One is $456,000 for a sewer main repair, and $50,000 for water meters. Those will all come out of the free cash in the sewer and water enterprise. From the town free cash side, we anticipate requests adding up to $226,000. That's as of today. Tomorrow, I'm going to send out a memo advising everyone that the warrant is open, but we're not looking for articles.
Not encouraging.
And we'll see what comes in. But probably the most the warrant article that will draw the most attention and discussion is a article to establish a general bylaw to prohibit recreational marijuana sales in the town of Whitman. Now, the strategy or the idea behind doing it this way is Whitman was one of the towns that voted in the state ballot to approve recreational marijuana. I don't know if people did that thinking, yeah, we should do it, but not here, or if they wanted it in their own community. The yes and no votes appeared to be pretty well divided along socioeconomic lines. I am assuming, based on a prior experience, that we're not going to have a resounding cry of support to open up recreational marijuana stores. But under the law that was just passed, the town has to take a two-tier approach because we originally voted to allow or to support the sale of recreational marijuana. So our article on December, is it 12th, 11th?
11th.
11th, will ask whether the town will vote to prohibit the sale of recreational marijuana. That's a first step item. It's arguably, it's not certain, but it's arguably necessary to then have another town meeting and election prior to April 1st if we're really committed to not having recreational marijuana, because applications open on April 1st, 2018. And if by that time you don't have a ban in place, we're up for grabs. Now, there's an argument that the general bylaw prohibits it, but our council is not sure that the Cannabis Commission will actually accept that as a prohibition if we haven't gone through all the hoops. So we'll be revisiting it again in the spring.
So the first hoop is to present a warrant article at the December 11th meeting, asking the people who come to that town meeting
Whether or not they
whether or
support a
not,
ban.
whether or not they support a ban. If they support a ban, then we would have to be doing something before April 1st and have a townwide election before April 1st
Correct.
that would basically ask all of the people in the town to come to an election if they wish,
Correct.
to vote for it or against it.
Now, if the vote is positive to allow marijuana, then we
Then
have a different issue. We have to determine whether we want to
Have-
limit where it can be sold.
Right.
But is that an issue for this board, or does that then just go?
No, that's
The planning board.
that's the planning board for a zoning bylaw. Either way, it's a planning board for a zoning bylaw. But in addition, if we do pass the bylaw prohibiting recreational marijuana sales, we still have to go to a townwide election.
Right.
Because the voters in the majority voted to allow marijuana,
In
the
state?
voters in the majority would now have to vote to prohibit recreational marijuana in the town of Whitman.
So we're giving the people that think that having recreational marijuana sales in town, we're giving those people who think that that's a bad idea another shot at asking the whole town if it really wants to do it
Yes.
or not.
Succinctly put, yes.
And that makes, thank you, and that makes, that makes those other meetings we had a few months ago relevant and irrelevant at the same time. Relevant because we know the strong feelings of a group of people.
Right.
But we're looking forward to see if those strong feelings are shared after people have thought about this with the majority of people in the town.
Right.
And this is the way to go about doing it. Town meeting first, then general election second.
Correct.
We need a local newspaper,
We're gonna
let
have
everybody know.
a town meeting, an election, a town meeting, another election. in May.
I hope you've been paying attention, because we really,
Anyone have any thoughts?
So the motion is to open the special town meeting and close
Well,
it?
that's the motion we're dealing with right now, right? We kind of
November
flipped down to old business
Yeah.
during that. Okay, all those in favor of having a special town meeting on December 11th, 2017?
Aye.
We already did that. Vote to open the special town meeting warrant. Is there a motion for that?
And,
yeah, we moved.
Okay, that was already moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And what we're going to expect to see on that special town meeting warrant is something that deals with what we were just talking about.
Correct.
Okay. Clear. Christmas holiday observance, we're going to do it on December 20th.
Make a motion to,
To declare the Christmas
Based
is December
on the way the
25th.
holiday
Santa.
falls,
Yeah.
I am suggesting be sure I have my days right,
It's on a Monday.
that we have a holiday on December 26th,
Tuesday.
because both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day are holidays for the employees. And if we don't close on the 26th, we're creating 90 some odd floating holidays that have to be dealt with,
Yeah.
which in some cases involve offices with 2 people in it. I think it would be more efficient for the town to
Just
just
to-
take the day after Christmas, give plenty of notice to people, and then we don't have the floating obligation.
Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
One
Is there a
second.
second? Anybody have any thoughts? Sounds pretty good to me.
Yep.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Discuss engaging a consultant for solar energy options. Frank?
Yes, Lisa has been doing quite a bit of work on this. Fortunately, our selectman, who has some familiarity with this in Duxbury, has been helpful in providing some information, and we would like to engage a consultant to assist us in a 2-tier approach. One is, there are a ton of net metering operations out there, and each one has its own unique little issues. And the consultant we're referring to, Beth Greenblatt, is phenomenally familiar with this process. The second item is the potential to identify certain parcels in Whitman that could be used to lease to solar development. We're also going to be looking at roofs, but I really don't think we have any opportunities there. But I really need the expertise of this person to do that. We received a $15,000 grant from the Green Communities program to evaluate solar, but it wasn't enough. We also received an appropriation at town meeting for money to evaluate solar. Originally, this was going to be handled by the Economic Development Committee, but
I remember that.
I can't seem to find it.
It's better this way.
It was an effort that so far hasn't worked. So we are going to take this on, but I wanted to seek the approval of the board to move ahead with engaging the consultant to assist us in this process.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Frank, I have a couple of questions. First of all, whatever happened to that possible solar down by Peaceful Meadows, across from there?
Well, the people who were going to develop it didn't have access to it. They had the wrong parcel,
Huh. Whoops. That'll do it.
or the wrong owners, or
Yeah.
a combination thereof. So that's dead. That's just not even worth talking about.
Are they gonna, if we get somebody, are they gonna go around town and look at what we have for land and, like the one that we have down by Franklin Street, that corner of Franklin and South Ave? That land there where,
It's all wetlands. You can't do anything with it.
but I mean, if you don't have to go into the ground, can you still use it as a solar farm?
You can't build on top of it either.
Oh.
I should bring this up. We talked about the Regal property, and one of the grants I had was to evaluate that potential development of that site. We hired a LSP who did a good job of analyzing the property and identifying the contamination. We hired an engineer to go out and do a wetlands delineation for the parcel, and lo and behold, our 17 and a half acres are now developable to the tune of 4 acres.
Really?
And I don't have anywhere else we can replicate wetlands, so it isn't likely that we're going to be able to do anything with that parcel. Remember, it's not even owned by the town. My reluctance in foreclosing was because of the contamination and potential liabilities. she has made some suggestions, and I'm gonna look at a few of them, in terms of encapsulation and, but I'm really gun shy about moving forward with a foreclosure on that property.
Any land behind the DPW that we want to, I know.
That we could, the Mount Whitman could possibly be used, and that's one of the things we're going to evaluate.
Right now, I'm not a big fan of putting solar panels on roofs. I don't know, just, I worry about
Well,
that.
there's two reasons not to. One, if you lease it out, then you don't own your roof anymore.
Yeah, true.
And if you do it yourself, the cost of development probably outweighs the savings. Your payback is probably 18 to 19 years.
Yeah, the only money is in it is if you can get into the tax credits. And
Right.
these guys, Solar City, Kearsarge, and Oresco, they've pretty much cornered the market on doing this sort of thing. So that's what you kind of need this person, this a consultant like Beth, to come and sort of figure that all out.
Because there is a new plan coming out in June with different types of credits. So Massachusetts is very committed to alternative energy. So they're continuing to develop options for it.
Do you have an anticipated cost for this consultant work?
Probably in the 30,000 range. Oh, if I spent everything available, it would be 35.
Yeah, I think originally when we had talked to her, she was throwing around $25,000. So 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
Two.
So obviously, if you find a good site, and then you get into, there's a bidding that has to be done, much like regular procurement, it's just instead of 30B, it's like 25A, and it's very similar, but it's very complicated.
It's
So,
much more complicated.
yeah. So she'd be you really do need a consultant for that part of it.
I would say so, yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to allow Frank to go forward and engage a consultant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, last item on the agenda is Brockton Sewer, fittingly enough.
Oh,
As you know, the town and our council have been engaged with Brockton for the last 2 years in negotiations for a successor agreement for sewer. For reasons best known to Abington, they chose to accept Brockton's proposal to become a common user. And I actually, at a meeting with Jay Condon, took a piece of paper, drew a blue line, and I wrote on it, common user continental divide. I said, I don't know how else to tell you. This is just something I cannot bring back to the town. They have now moved to the point where they're telling us they either want us to become a common user or leave their system. Leaving their system isn't an option. I hope that some reasonableness will prevail, but my firm objection to becoming a common user is that our system is about 1/10 the size of the city of Brockton's. Once we become a common user, we become as liable for the repairs to the various operations for the city of Brockton sewer system as a resident of Brockton would be. And our position was always that we built our own infrastructure. We made an agreement to pay for a portion of the plant operations based on flow. And they no longer want that. And I'm making the board aware that we're approaching a point where we may have to amp things up, and if the city of Brockton issues us a cease and desist order, then we'll go out and seek a restraining order, and things will start getting difficult.
If we had an original agreement with the city of Brockton that we were gonna take care of our own infrastructure and be charged for the flow, that agreement must have been a signed kind of agreement.
It was for 20
Brockton-
years.
Brockton is
Oh,
not-
just for 20 years?
So, oh, just for 20 years, that's, so is it over, is it 20 years
It's over. It was over into July 1st, 2014?
All right. So they've been very generous to allow us to flow for the last 3 years, is that what you're
Oh,
saying?
we've been paying it. And my argument would be that we're, as a co-permittee on the system,
Right.
I don't believe the city of Brockton is the sole owner. They feel differently.
And do we have a legal opinion on, have
We have
our,
had counsel at the table every
Right.
step of the way.
right, and is our council confident that we should be able to continue with the same arrangement we have now?
No, we have entertained some changes
Mhm.
to the proposal. Our original agreement did not require us to assume any responsibility for improvements to the plant that increased flow.
Mhm.
That was strictly the city. We have moved off that. I have accepted the concept that we will share in the bonding and debt service costs for improvements to the system, whether it's flow-related or just general maintenance-related. What I'm arguing is I don't want to pay for borrowing that's related to putting new pipes in the ground, new manholes, or any of that
If
stuff,
they're in Brockton.
if they're in Brockton.
Or even Abington then, if they're
Well,
all one
Abington
system.
has agreed to it, so Abington is in an agreement.
But
Their
what I'm saying
agreement
is
says
if-
they're a common user.
If Abington has issues, just like Brockton would have issues, we'd all be part of the same, we'd have to pay for Abington's infrastructure also?
No, because they don't own Abington. But
Thought these-
Abington has consented to be a common user for the purpose
Oh.
of maintaining the sewer system. I can't make that step. In all good conscience, I can't say that the town of Whitman should assume the potential future liability of millions and millions of dollars in maintenance that we don't receive any benefit for. Their argument is the benefit we receive is we're allowed to send sewer there. I mean, that's, if I were on their side, that's the argument I'd be making. But I'm not.
And you're saying Abington
Want
has
to build
agreed?
a very large, expensive wastewater treatment plant?
Well, that's just it. Our options are
That's our
limited.
option.
If they're right. And I mean, it's the EPA that's gonna make that decision ultimately.
So we're basically kicking the ball down the road a little bit.
Where the ball's getting a little faster, I just wanted you to be aware that we have not made any substantial progress since last November.
Anyone have any questions or thoughts? Do you want to keep kicking this ball down the road?
Well, I see this ending up in litigation,
It could,
and ultimately, the courts will decide this.
and that would determine
Yeah.
who's responsible for what.
Right.
Right now, we have, I believe that Environmental Partners is meeting with the DPW board tonight to talk about the transfer pipe that runs from Auburn Street to the sewer facility in Brockton. We had a break last year, which cost us $239,000. We had a break this year, and unfortunately, I wasn't in this situation early, and I was presented with a bill for 400 and, get the right number, $445,966.71. Now, bottom line, if the bill's correct, we're gonna have to pay it. We did not go to the Department of Revenue for deficit spending approval. So it's extremely important that this issue be addressed at the special town meeting. Otherwise, we're violating law by deficit spending.
No, otherwise, we're just fixing the glitch.
Well, you know, the compelling
Contracted to
argument,
do it, haven't we?
the compelling argument is there's raw sewage bubbling up in the street. I mean, nobody's gonna argue that it shouldn't be. So,
On that note. Okay, thanks for the update, Frank. Do you have anything else around the board? Anything for the good of the cause?
yes, actually, we talked about the town hall. I am going to be working with the departments on budgets, and while we haven't met to really talk about this, the town voted a series of contracts with COLAs of 2%. I'm assuming our approach is going to be to maintain that COLA across the board unless something else is negotiated.
And you and I talked on the phone today about the offices being closed on
Thank
Thursday.
you.
Do we want?
Yes. An opportunity has been presented to provide some really essential, necessary training information to employees. And the program is a 1.5-hour program starting at 3 p.m. and ending at 4:30
This Thursday.
this Thursday. Because I would like every employee to have an opportunity to attend this, I'm requesting that we close the offices at 3 o'clock on Thursday. We'll post notices on the board outside and on the website so that people aren't surprised, but this is something that I really think is necessary and useful to our employees.
And the topic of the,
It's everybody's favorite, retirement versus Social Security, and when you're a municipal employee, you may or may not have that added benefit.
thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Randy?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
You got nothing? You got nothing, huh,
Got
Scott?
nothing.
I know you do.
I do.
Brian, do you have anything?
I'm not sure if it's what he's going to talk about, but there is the Veterans Day Parade coming
yeah.
up on Saturday.
Yeah.
And it is in Rockland. And Dan and I don't know if anyone else is, but you and I are going to be in attendance.
Yeah.
And
Frank
I'd like to
will be.
see a contingent from Whitman to come out and wave the flags and support the veterans and hope for good weather.
And I have a couple of things. One thing is at one of our last meeting, or the meeting before that at South Shore Votech, you voted, we had an extra $60,000 from, in our budget from the previous year. And I made a motion and we voted to return that monies to the towns according to the way it's allocated. And so the town of Whitman will have their last payment less $13,237. So that worked out well. And second of all, another thing, Old Colony Planning Council at their last meeting voted to have a signatory, for a person to be a signatory for representing towns with a greater population of 14,000. I was the one previously, I've been in for 2 years. There was 2 of us asking to redo it. And they felt that because of the fact that I've been doing it a while and I know I'm familiar with what we do at the Metropolitan Planning Organization, they voted me in for another 2 years. So I'll be representing the towns, and by doing that, when both chiefs come to me and come to us and talk about areas that are safety issues and intersections, I'm able to get a little extra push and get those projects done by the state, District 5. And that's been like 5 or 6 projects so far. So
Excellent.
it helps the town. So I'm glad that I get voted in.
So are we.
Yep,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Dilly dilly.
Mr. Chairman, just one other quick comment,
Yes.
if I may. Reverend Joshua Gray last year had a live nativity scene. He would like to redo that this year The police chief is aware of it. It's going to be minimally disruptive. It's 30 to 45 minutes on December 17th from 5 to 5:45. And there'll be small sections of Broad Street and, I forget that intersecting one, that will be closed for that period of time. But it was a real nice display last year.
Thank you. I have nothing.
The
Motion,
wine tasting event going on.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The 11th, actually, right?
11?
The 11th, that's this Saturday,
It's a great event.
wine tasting at the town hall.
I'm gonna get my tickets.
I got my ticket. Yeah, I'll be at the door collecting.
Hold two for me at the door though.
Who's bringing the cheese?
motion to adjourn will be in order then, if we're exhausted.
I'm
So moved.
exhausted. So moved, second.
All those in favor?
Aye. That's funny. Scott, did Chief give you that card that I received? About safety?